on AM 560, The Answer.
Get the latest weather, traffic, and news updates online at 560theanswer.com.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, this hour of the Shaun Thompson Show is sponsored exclusively by DonleyAuctions.com. They need your guns. Sell for top dollar. DonleyAuctions.com.
I love America. I love the Constitution. I love the First Amendment. I want to carry and all guns. I love it, property. And let me tell you something. If you care about your country, read Ludwig von Mises and the 6 lessons of the Austrian Economic School, motherfuckers.
From the streets of Melrose Park to the trading floor of the Merc, he's fought for every dollar he's ever earned. And now, with personal liberty and our system of capitalism under assault in America, he's here to seize back our rights from the government. With a cigar in one hand and a copy of the Declaration of Independence in the other, he's Shaun Thompson. And this is the Shaun Thompson Show.
Some folks are born made to wave the
I'm not a sports guy, Squirrel, it's true. I confess, grown men watching other grown men in costumes chasing balls is not my thing. You know what I watch in my spare time, Squirrel? Documentaries. Oh, I absolutely love them. They're educational, they're informative, and if they're done right, they can change the perspective of nations.
People have called us the #1 show in the world.
Lovely job, guys.
Thank you. I just hope I can continue this career for as long as I can, because I don't want anything else in the world.
But never would I have imagined what battle I joined.
Hey, buddy. You guys are okay?
There's like a huge team of people just combing the seats while we're on stage preparing for the show with dogs and stuff.
Specifically targeting Shen Yun performance.
No one wants to hear a bomb threat to the institution where your children are.
We had a sense of anticipation. We didn't know how it would go.
This is not a normal cut. This was done with the purpose of the tire exploding on the highway.
This is crazy.
These are open Chinese spy organizations.
They've gotten threats to shoot up the performance.
All the noise and all the distractions around you.
This is a machine that can be used against any American.
Why are they doing this?
How much more of this are we going to be able to take? We feel like we're at war.
This is not going to stop us. We can't let it stop us.
Sound check.
What can I do to tell people our side? This tour is our chance to do it.
Doesn't matter what the obstacles are.
We're doing this together.
My next guest, executive producer with Sincere Pictures and vice president of NTD Television, where he reports exclusively on U.S.-China relations and foreign influence operations. Steve Lance, how are you?
Doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
You know, it's an amazing time to be alive. I really do believe, Steve, this is arguably the best time in world history to be alive for the reason of we know what the enemy is, and we have the opportunity to defeat it with its own history of lies, fraud, and murder. And that enemy is collectivism. And I love what you do in this documentary. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you so much. When you really take a step back and think about this period of time, COVID feels like another lifetime ago, but, 5 short years ago, we were all locked down under, draconian medical tyranny and everything else that came along with that. And you mentioned collectivism, the chief culprit right now on the planet. We defeated, Russia during the Cold War, but we didn't defeat communism. And the largest collective, if you will, is Communist China. And they're knocking at our doorstep, and they have been for a long time.
You know what China is? I was lucky enough to live through the Cold War and watch its collapse. And it was fascinating to be around in that era and be young and, pay attention to it. And one of the things that China does far better than the Soviet Union is the facade of legitimacy. The Soviet Union could never pull it off. They might have had a Potemkin village, but their entire government was obviously running on fumes, corruption, drunken support of the people who were trapped as prisoners. Whereas China has a veneer. It appears to be something other than what it is. It's just a polished lipstick on a pig version of the Great Leap Forward, as far as I'm concerned, when you're not free. But then again, look at how smart they were to infiltrate our country. And that's what that's what you're exposing, because it's never what it seems. It always has a veneer of art, a veneer of performance, a veneer of diplomacy. But it really isn't, is it?
No, you hit the nail on the head. China's done a great job in propping up their economy. If you visit China, their major cities, Beijing, Shanghai, they're more modernized than any city that we have in terms of architecture and landscaping, and they've created that communist utopia to really dupe our, business leaders and, diplomats to when they go to, oh, look at China, it's open, it's developed, it's great. All the while, they're using the United Front Work Department, the apparatus that is really aimed at penetrating us through all the means that you said. It's Beijing's most insidious and effective tool for global subversion. And unlike the Cold War, as you mentioned, the Russians weren't able to infiltrate our universities. 500,000 Chinese students. They weren't able to infiltrate and influence Hollywood the way they do, changing plots of major Hollywood films. They're not on they weren't on Wall Street. They weren't lobbying our members of Congress on Capitol Hill. But China has somehow managed to do that, and they've made great gains to the real detriment of our country.
Well, and the reason is, and what my conclusion is, but I'm curious to know your conclusion. My conclusion is this. They have to destroy the only country that is built on the citizens' property rights versus the government's, because we represent the youngest, the richest, with the highest quality of life, and the most independent citizens than any other country on the planet. Otherwise, if they were truly successful and communism really worked, they wouldn't care what we did. They wouldn't have to buy our crooked politicians. And let me tell you something, Steve, I've been watching them buy Chicago, as I call them, short-in-the-pants mafia members, Chicago Democrats, since the 80s. They were very in vogue in their infiltration to very specific, most corrupt area-led cities, New York, Chicago, California, because they understood they could buy a politician and still have the veneer of legitimate business while they were torturing their own people back at home that fought for our property rights. So it's very interesting to see that the reason they infiltrate us is because they cannot really compete with us. They have no ingenuity. They have no real productivity. And their workmanship is terrible, isn't it?
I totally agree. I mean, just take the two flags of the two countries, right? What do you think of when you see the American flag? You think of a nation, you think of a people, you think of a culture. What do you think of when you see the blood red Chinese Communist Party's flag? You think of everything that you just said, strife, 80 million unnatural deaths and illegitimate government. And, they come, they infiltrate, they steal our technology, they steal our intellectual property, and they don't have that type of American ingenuity. And when you look at the American flag, one nation under God, and that is something that they don't have.
Well, you know what I love too? It just looks like a banner of lies. It's a lie. When you see Mao Zedong, he's responsible for the Great Leap Forward, 1958 to 62. What is it? Is it 65 million? Is it 80 million? Nobody knows because they didn't keep records. But he killed his own, starved them out, destroyed them. The stupidity in that man, not only because he wouldn't brush his teeth. You want to talk about a filthy pig. But with the whole thing with kill the birds. Kill the birds. Don't you know what birds do, you stupid son of a dog? And it was amazing to pretend. I don't know if you hear what's going on in this new wave of morons in America, but did you ever hear of this idiot Hassan Piker who lives with his mother and father, and he's a leading intellectual of the new American Commie Party? Did you hear what he said about Mao Zedong?
I don't recall, but I have seen him going to Beijing and Cuba, of all places. What did he say?
Oh, this is great. Hold on.
I got stopped by a cop who thought I was like making fun of Mao Zedong, which I never would and never will. Mao Zedong is a one of the great leaders of this world, okay? A man who changed the entire universe, the entire planet. Okay. For real, yes. I mean, there was a lot of excesses, let's be real, but the People's Republic of China would not exist without Mao Zedong.
He's kind of right when it comes to that, but that's the raging intellect on the American Communist Party. Mao Zedong not only was a filthy slob with his own hygiene, responsible for 80 million people, but he had a little bit of a problem. He liked to rape kids, didn't he?
I mean, honestly, that audio that you just played, I thought it was parody or you impersonating him.
No, that's the intellect of the American left, kid, right there.
It's. I mean, I'm speechless, to be honest. It's just unbelievable to think, as you laid out, the Great Leap Forward, the Cultural Revolution, the various campaigns that eventually led to the 1989 Tiananmen Square massacre, where thousands of pro-democracy students were, massacred and killed. It's beyond the pale.
You know what the beauty is, Steve? You can always tell when somebody was taught by people who wanted knowledge to be explored by the people they were teaching, and they gave you that thirst for knowledge. When you look at the Chicago school system, the New York school system, the New Jersey, pick one, and you look at the American teacher unions, this is their sin. This is their malpractice. What we're experiencing is not the rise of communism. There is no such thing. What we're experiencing is the malpractice of the American education system, who never taught what Mao Zedong was to this Hassan Piker generation of idiots. I mean, that's all it is. Because if you really knew the history of Havana, Cuba, of the Soviet Union, the collapse of the National Workers' Socialist Party of Germany, and the most prolific mass serial killer murderer in world history, Mao Zedong, you wouldn't even deal with these idiots. So this is really a stain on our education system, isn't it?
It's a great point, and it's really at the root of all of this, in my opinion. When you look at socialism in practice or communism, it has failed everywhere. So the only way that you could continue to perpetuate sort of the idea that it's going to work is by dumbing down the population or not teaching them proper history. And, Marxism, Maoism, Leninism, these are sort of complicated ideologies that, they actually do work. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to trick people into, following along with them. So that's another reason why they don't want to educate the population about these things, because sad to say, these types of ideas, the Marxism, the cultural Marxism, the social, it's been incubating in our universities. And, I have family members, cousins, folks that just came out of college, and, they didn't learn a thing. And they just parrot a lot of the same propaganda that their professors are teaching them. And so the education system really needs to be overhauled, and they need to teach the real history of what all these things are, because the slow creep of communism is knocking at our door. Look at the Democratic Socialists of America. It's microwave communism. Don't let the socialist word fool you. If you were to look at what the Democrat Socialists of America are advocating for and the verbiage they use, and you compare that to the so-called Constitution of the USSR, I highly recommend people do that. You'll see very similar words and objectives and flowery language.
Well, I call it the Fourth Reich. I don't let them call themselves. They call themselves whatever they want. And this is the beauty of what your documentary is. Because the entire philosophy is built on a lie, and they must lie to move forward their agenda. And that's what this whole Shen Performing Arts Company is. It's a lie, isn't it?
Shen Yun, the tagline of Shen Yun is China before communism. And Shen Yun is an American-based, a New York-based company with a mission, which is to revive 5,000 years of Chinese culture. And why is that important? To your point, China was, the Chinese people over 5,000 years were very in touch with spirituality and the divine. They believed in God, they believed in karmic retribution, to do good things, and so on and so forth. And so when the communists took over, the first thing they did was undermine spirituality and religion. They destroyed temples, they mocked, God, and tried to take this out of people's hearts, because they wanted to be the supreme being And ultimately, everything, to your point, that they have built, the CCP is built on lies. And it's a threat to them when they see sort of this global phenomenon, Shen Yun, inspiring not just Chinese people, but, people from all walks of life. They walk out of a performance and they see what China could be like without communism, what it was like and what it could be like. And so the CCP has gone to great lengths to undermine this performance. They submit bomb threats to theaters in Washington and all over the world whenever they perform, and a host of other nefarious activity.
How about when the Chinese were so in bed with the Biden administration, so in bed with the Obama administration, they had secret police departments, Chinese government orchestrated departments to just chase down the Chinese defectors and the Chinese American people and to extort. I mean, is it amazing that this is not a bigger scandal than what it was? Because in order to do that, they had to bribe or have the power of the American operating government to do this, didn't they?
I mean, we just saw last week the President of the United States laying out with great detail, if you go to the White House website and look at the documents, our intel community, people essentially working on behalf of China to stifle information that China was heavily involved in trying to sway the 2020 election. And it dates back even further than that to 2018 and beyond, on a scale that is unparalleled to any type of interference campaign we've ever seen from Russia, China, Iran, or anybody else. This is all about China. And so they are in our election systems, they're in Wall Street, they're in Capitol Hill. It should be a grave concern. And, sometimes in Washington, when people refer to China, you kind of get a glimpse of where people stand by how they refer to China. Are they, we often hear they're a competitor. Okay, so if somebody refers to them as, they're our greatest competitor, you can tell that they might not be too clear. They're actually our greatest adversary. And until we recognize that threat, I don't think we're going to be able to handle it properly.
So the documentary is all over the place, and it's operating right now. I can go home tonight, like I plan to do, smoke a cigar, and watch this documentary. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. You could watch it on your preferred platform, whether it's Amazon, Apple. But for your viewers, if they wanted to watch it for free, you could just go to ntdfilms.com.
ntdfilms.com? Is that what you said? I'm sorry, the phone broke up.
Yes, NTD Films.
Okay, now in your research, I'm going to tell you something, and maybe it's in there, and maybe it isn't. I'm going to know by tomorrow morning. But in your research, I was at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange in the late 1980s. The relationship between the Chinese Communist Party, and back then there's a moron son of a previous mayor. His name's Richard J. Daley. If he can read, I'll buy you steak dinner every time I see you, because I don't think he can read. Took him 4 times to pass the bar. And all the Chinese so-called businessmen would come downtown to Chicago, and they started to invest, so they say, in buildings, in businesses. They were neck deep in bed with the short and the pants mafia. In your research, did it lead you back to the nucleus, the capital, American capital of communism and mafia control, Chicago? Or did you skip that?
It didn't take us there, but you know where it did take us? It took us to the New York Times. The so-called paper of record. So basically in the film, we have 2 tracks. One human interest track, which tracks these dancers and sort of their process, Olympic caliber athletes and artists. And the other is an investigative track that looks into the New York Times, who has written 12 adverse articles on the Shen Yun performing arts. And that's how the whole documentary sort of got started. We saw 1, 2, 3, then around 4th or 5th article hit piece by the New York Times on this group. We started to say, this is a little bit strange. And so that led us on to an investigative track that uncovered a lot of interesting parallels to the New York Times and Beijing.
Yeah. They've been communists since wasn't it them or New York something employed Karl Marx, the untalented bastard who let all of his kids starve to death, and his wife. Steve Lance, it's been a pleasure. I hope I get to meet you in person, but one thing's for certain. I'm definitely going to be watching Unbroken, the untold story of Shen Yun tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. We'll be back with your calls and comments.
This is the Shaun Thompson Show, where Democrats are always wrong, Republicans are seldom right, and politicians are never, ever to be trusted. On AM 560.